how you behave in certain scenarios.
One, intelligence. One must have intelligence.
The enemy studies you. The enemy knows you. The enemy watches how you behave in certain scenarios. The enemy watches how you behave around certain people. The enemy watches where your eyes go, watches what your words say, watches what you choose to listen to. He sees what you do in secret. He sees how you behave in private. And he uses all of this information to create the strongest temptation and place it before you. He has many strategies, but all of his strategies are ultimately based on deception. The only power that the enemy can have over you is the power that he deceives you into giving to him. Now, there are many deceptive strategies of the enemy, but I want to focus on just two right now so that we can really dig in and see exactly how these work against us in our everyday life. But I want you to write in the comment section right now, write, "Open my eyes." Let that be your prayer for discernment. Let that be your commitment to being vigilant about the supernatural realm. Remember this, everything about the kingdom of hell is built on shifting shadow. All the weapons, all of the attacks, they're just formations, shadowy figures. So the moment that you introduce anything that has to do with the kingdom of hell to the light of the Holy Spirit, the power of darkness dissolves. Light eradicates darkness. What does light do to darkness? It dissolves the darkness. By their very own natures, by the necessity of their natures, light and darkness cannot coexist. The presence of either means the absence of the other. And so in your life, you have to receive the light of the Spirit. Now, you have the Holy Spirit living in you. You have the power of God residing in you. You've been positioned in Christ. You are in Christ. Christ is in power and you are in Christ. You're seated in heavenly places. So why then do we not always see the manifestation, the realization, the attainment of that power? Why does it seem as though sometimes we live defeated, even though in the spirit we know we're positioned in victory? Well, I want to show you how the enemy attacks. In fact, you may be under the power of this attack without even realizing it. So it's my prayer that it's exposed and eliminated in your life. So first we must understand that Satan is called the tempter. Look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 3. I'm going to read verses 4 and 5. Even while we were with you, we warned you that troubles would soon come, and they did, as you well know. That is why, when I could bear it no longer, I sent Timothy to find out whether your faith was still strong. So the apostle here has some concerns about the faith of the people. I was afraid that the tempter had gotten the best of you and that our work had been useless. Think about this here. The enemy's primary goal is to weaken your faith. Why? Because if he can weaken your faith, he can keep you from accessing and becoming all that God desires for you. When the enemy deceives you, he convinces you to not use your power. I think we make the Holy Spirit jealous when we exaggerate demonic power and minimize the Holy Spirit's power. Well, what does the scripture say? Greater is he who's in me, who's in you, the believer, than he that is in the world. Well, I have a great strength. You have a great strength. The power of the Holy Ghost residing in you. We have been given dominion, power, and authority over the forces of darkness. And we are beings of light because we reflect the glory of God. Yet the enemy deceives us, not wanting us to use the strength of the power that we've been given. Instead, we freak out when he attacks us. What do?
Intelligence. One must have intelligence. Intelligence is different from knowledge. In knowledge, as was pointed out earlier, there is ignorance. Right? Whereas intelligence is free from ignorance and therefore free from illusion. And it's not the result of accumulated knowledge. Right? Intelligence. The quality of intelligence comes when there is perception and action. That is perception and no interval between perception and action. You see, act. I wonder if you understand this. Are you following? You see danger, right? Like a precipice. And the very perception is action. You move away instantly. That is intelligence. That's part of that intelligence. You see a dangerous snake, an instant action. Right? That's fairly simple. Because there is a physical response. And the physical reaction is self-preservation, which is intelligence. It's the unintelligent that sees the danger and pursues it. You understand? Intelligence is the perception of that which is psychologically dangerous and acting instantly. That is intelligence. Psychologically, it is dangerous to depend on another. Right? For affection, for love, for comfort, for enlightenment, for that is dangerous because you are not free. And therefore, the very perception of that danger and the acting of it is intelligence. Right? One must have that quality of intelligence. That intelligence is denied when you are conforming to a pattern laid down by the gurus, by doesn't matter who, some idiotic person. Or conforming, imitating, following. Therefore, there is the ideal and the action which is different from the ideal, or conforming or adjusting to the ideal, which is lack of perception, right? Lack of seeing the actual movement of this. And when there is perception, the ideal, the imitation, the conformity, following, totally ends. And that is intelligence. You're following me? I am not defining intelligence. It is so. It's only the neurotic that sees the danger and continues. Neurotic, the stupid, the thoughtless, the man who just follows his own particular idiosyncrasy pleasures and gives it a rational meaning, and so on. So, one must have this quality of intelligence. Then, with that intelligence, is there a state of a movement, whatever you like to call it, which can solve all these innumerable conflicts and miseries. You're following all this? The mind that is totally intelligent. And that mind is inquiring. Is that Sir, if I may point out most respectfully, there are going to be Sir, there's going to be 5 days of dialogue. Then please raise these questions. The speaker is not preventing you from asking questions, from doubting what he says, from questioning everything that he has said. But this is not the occasion. So please have patience, and consideration. With that intelligence, we are inquiring to find out if there is, there may not be, if there is an act, a state, a quality that resolves every issue of our life. Surely, I'm hesitant because one has to use words that have been spoiled. One has to use a word that has lost all its meaning. A word like love has become sexual, sensory, sensuous. With it goes pleasure, fear, anxiety, dependence, and all the ugliness that takes place in the so-called relationship. So one uses that word very, very hesitantly. It is in no way related to jealousy, fear, or sorrow. It is total responsibility, not only to your immediate person, but to the total responsibility to the whole of life. Not only your life, but the other life. I say that love is the total answer. Without that, do what you will. Stand on your head for the rest of your life. Sit in a position, lotus or whatever you do. So, with that intelligence goes the other. You understand? Without intelligence, you cannot have the other. They are inseparable. And that's why compassion has this quality of great intelligence. And that is the solution, which will solve all our problems. And that's what we are going to share together in this. There is perception of sorrow.
Of
sorrow.
Sorrow.
Let's take that. my son, my brother, my father dies. What takes place generally is I escape from it. Because I can't face this sense of tremendous danger, of loneliness, of despair. So I escape. Escape in ideology, in concepts, in a dozen ways. Now, to perceive the escape, just to perceive, not check it, not control it, not say I mustn't perceive, just to be aware, choiceless again, to aware that you are escaping. Then the escape stops. The momentum of escape is a wastage of energy. You've stopped that energy. Not you have stopped. Perception has ended the wastage. Therefore, you have more energy. There is more energy. Then, when there is no escape, then you are faced with the fact of what is. That is, you have lost somebody. Death, loneliness, despair. That is exactly what is. There, again, a perception of what is.
I think I see the direction you're taking. What you want to say is that when I perceive that you are sorrowful, because I don't perceive sorrow, it doesn't exist by itself. So when I perceive that you are sorrowful, what I perceive is that you have been separated. And this is a source of sorrow, because now your father is dead and you are separated. And in perceiving that sorrow is associated with separation, or am I not perceiving that joy is associated with...
No, sir, not yet. The fact is I've lost somebody. That's a fact. Burned, gone. And if it is something gone, finally gone. And I feel tremendously lonely. That's a fact. Lonely, without any sense of relationship, without a sense of any security. I'm completely at the end.
Many people speak of this as saying, I am empty now.
Yeah, empty. There is an awareness of this emptiness, of this loneliness, of this despair. I say, when you don't escape, you conserve the energy. Now, there is this conservation of energy when I'm facing the fear of my loneliness. I meet it. You are aware of it. There is an awareness of this fear of loneliness.
But now, how can you give your undivided attention to someone whom you have lost? Simply and finally.
I've lost him finally. But no, now we're examining the state of the...
Fantasy Animal Vegan, hello. Well, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Have you ever visited? Have you ever been there? What's it like? I'd be curious to check it out. He's a very interesting character. Oh, very cool. Oh, interesting. was introduced to him a good number of years back. So one of the fundamental core elements of his instruction is that thought can't grasp reality, and that thought, or the contents of thought, are at the source of basically all of human misery. The content of thought, and that the solution to that misery can't be found in the contents of thought, because the problem arises out of thought. The problem of human suffering arises out of thought. It arises within thought. It is the result of thought. So you can't use thought to solve the problem, which is a very, profound truth. It's very profound. And actually that truth simplifies the whole of the practice. To realize reality can't be done in thought. And so you're left with no option but to step out of thought. Which means actual reality is not conceptual and can't be conceptualized by the brain. So you have no choice, absolutely no choice. Without any argument, there is no way around it. You have to step out of the brain to realize what is. That's one of his fundamental, the core elements of what he's expressed to people over the years, along with a number of other things. But the main one being that within thought is contained perception of separateness, the source of fear, the source of anxiety, the source of stress. And to step out of that dimension is the answer to the problem, which brings you in touch with love and reality. It's funny because he was just talking about that in the video we just watched a second ago, and it's about perception. The experience of being is not dualistic. We are here together. This happening is happening for both of us at the same time. It's happening for everyone at the same time. Noticing. Yeah, okay, that's one way that it's termed, isn't it, in some schools? Direct perception is not a thought. This happening right now is not a thought happening, is it? It's a happening that's happening. You know, your body, that body is not a thought. This interaction itself is not a thought. So the happening is one. The thing that is happening is one. And that obviously, that same happening includes these bodies, even as they're talking, but also includes the whole earth and everything in it, the whole cosmos, the universe, everything in it. It's happening in the same place. So that experience is one unfoldment. But within thought, I can conceptualize you and your existence. At which point now I'm just conceptualizing your existence, and I'm essentially imagining what it's like to be you. Now that one, following that line of thought means that I've separated myself from you. If you're already me and we're already one, then I don't have to imagine what it's like to be you, because it's the same as what it's like to be me at a very deep level. And that's where reality takes place, in that oneness. But I can conceptualize your experience and imagine what it's like to be you, at which point I've separated us. Yeah. Exactly. So in that experience, there's a sharing the same moment. And that's happening. It's totally intimate. It is as intimate as it gets. To be one together, that's love. So this element that you've pointed out there of let us be in the God or divine together, that's what some people call the practice of being present. Yeah. The observer and the observed, which is taking place, obviously, all the time. Is that what it is? I'll look that up. Why does that ring a bell? I think I saw it. Did I see that in a Skyrim video today? Is that Nordic? Norse? I watched a Skyrim. It's the world snake. Yeah, okay. I watched a video on Skyrim overhaul today, where the video creator overhauls Skyrim into a Nordic setting. And I'm pretty sure I saw that word in there today. One of Loki's children. Oh, interesting. Yeah, a lot of this language from these tales and legends originates in people trying to describe reality. That's all it is. Mythology. People mistakenly think it's about some kind of being that once upon a time existed, or who exists somewhere in another dimension, the god of this life or whatever, but it's not that at all. Yeah, the oneness, yeah. It's where things get a bit weird. In the non-physical element. Have you heard of H.R. Geiger or H.R. Giger? Also known as home, yeah, exactly. I'll just, I want to get a picture up, but I better just check and make sure it's family friendly first. You've probably seen something like this before, or these sorts of things. So H.R. Geiger is the inspiration behind the alien creature from Aliens, and his artwork. So he used to take a fair amount of drugs, and yeah, okay, so you know it. So he drew a lot of his perceptions. You know, he made art around them, and just trying to find one that isn't too adult oriented. A lot of them are very sexual. You know, a lot of the creatures are kind of eating themselves and like consuming themselves in very suggestive ways. But essentially, it's a reflection of an entity that is inside itself and inside itself within pleasure. Like a self-contained entity absorbing itself, you know? I can't really find one that illustrates the point that isn't sexual, so I'll probably just have to leave that, but he's got some interesting artwork for sure. Yeah, it does. Very much so. Alex Gray. That kind of rings a bell, actually. I'll have a look at it. Oh, yes. Okay, cool. I've seen some of this artwork before. Yeah, essentially, these are like a lot of the types of experiences you have, aren't they, in deep meditation, and also psychedelics. I can probably show these. Maybe. I hope. Yeah. Yeah, they are. The many transformations of mind. You know, there's a reason that some people in deep meditation see Jesus, and there's a reason that some people see the Buddha. There's a reason that some people see forces of the cosmos. Various transformations of mind. Some people see a vision of hell, some people see a vision of heaven. All of these visions arising in the same mind. So ultimately, enlightenment is about getting to the source of that mind, not getting caught up in the vision. People get caught up in the vision. They think that the vision they saw was real, not realizing that it's just another manifestation of mind. So enlightenment is about getting to the source of the mind itself before any of these visions arise. Yeah, vision is... Okay, well that's full on. I think that's allowed, isn't it? That's a woman giving birth. Normal. Yeah, vision is just part of the happening too. That one's called dying. It's quite interesting, isn't it? This one's quite cool. It's cool, isn't it? Leaving it all behind. Oh, this is his actual website. God, it must take him a long time to draw this stuff. If it is drawing. Or whatever it is. It must take him a long time to make these. Yeah, that's common. It happens to everyone. Uh-huh. Would you say you're still connected to that thing? Oops. Didn't see that. Yeah, you are still still connected to it, aren't you? Here's an interesting one. Look at that one. Vision crystal, it's called. That's trippy as hell, isn't it? Yeah, I was just going to say, it reminds me of, it makes me think about how, even in Buddhism, like there's different visions of different entities. You know, the embodiment of compassion, the embodiment of wrath, the embodiment of sorrow. All of the manifestations of the same mind. That's cool, dude. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? It's nice that we're finally waking up. Hello, Energy Pulsar. Welcome back. It's been a little while. How are you? We're just checking out some cool art. Trippy art. What's going on in your world, Energy? Thanks for introducing me to this fantasy. I've seen a lot of this art before, but I didn't have a name for the artist. Like, I've seen this one before. No worries, no worries. Yeah, no, it's fine. I've realized that it's basically impossible for me to stick to a specific schedule when it comes to streaming, so I've decided really more from next week. I experiment a lot with things like times and schedules and that sort of thing. So next week what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stream whenever I feel like it for however long I feel like it at the time, and just see how that happens. Yeah. That's true, fantasy. Yeah, so because I know where I live, I live in Western Australia, and it's got to be one of the worst places to be a streamer in terms of timing, because most of your audience is always American. The majority of your audience, whether you do it on Twitch or you do it on YouTube, the majority of the audience watching is American, which means you need to be streaming very early from like 8 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., or very late from like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12 a.m. in the morning. Like right now, it's 4:30 in the morning here, and I'm streaming because I can't sleep. And so I figure, how about just sort of letting go of the times and seeing how I feel, sleeping whenever I feel like I need to. And if I do stay up through the night, I can stream through the night, sleep a little bit in the daytime, because trying to live on a regular schedule where you're getting up at say 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. and then going about the day, by the time it comes around to being ready to stream, you're in like midday there, 11 a.m., 12 midday, and most of the people in America are asleep. Yeah, it could be. Could be, couldn't it? And I thought too, with sort of maybe doing an hour or two here and then an hour or two later and then having a bit of a sleep, then getting up and doing another hour or two here and there, it could potentially open it up to different people who are on at different times. So we'll see how we go. I'm going to do a bit of an experiment next week. Today is Friday, I think, here. Friday, so I get my kids back for the next couple days, and then this week's gone really quick, and then we'll see how we go. Yeah, that's another good thing too about the YouTube side of it. You can always catch up on the clips too. So I've got a boy and a girl. My daughter is 7 and my son is 5. Yeah, they're great kids. They really are. It's an interesting dynamic because, I don't live like most people and I don't operate like most people. And so it's interesting. It's been interesting to raise them. Like, I'm separated from their mum, and it's been interesting trying to raise them with consciousness and continuing to try to do that, to try to raise them with consciousness. It's really interesting. Kids, they absorb it, but sometimes it's hard to get the point across. Yeah, exactly. And they are really good natured, and they're really fun, and they're quite mischievous, which I like. They're not afraid to push back and to push their boundaries. And 9 out of 10 times they don't overstep the mark. But it's been interesting to see them growing and developing with me as their dad, when I operate so differently to a lot of other parents, and our family is different. So, but yeah, so far they've done really well. They respond really well to the incorporation of consciousness, and how, trying to help them to kind of step out of themselves sometimes and be aware of other people and other people's needs, and how not to impose accidentally on other people, how to be conscious and conscientious. So yeah, it's interesting to see how they've gone. So far they've done great. You go for a long time raising kids without seeing the effect that you're having. Like, you don't realize what they're taking in and what they're absorbing and what they're learning. And then after a while, eventually you start to see the little signs come up that they've heard you and that they've been paying attention and that they've actually absorbed it. It's a hard thing to do, to raise kids in consciousness today. Any of you guys play games? Video games. What do you play? If you do, what do you play? What sort of games do you play? Minecraft, Animal Crossing, Sky, Children of Light. I've heard of that. It's definitely something I've heard of. Is it a JRPG? Oh, it isn't. Oh yeah, okay, I know this one. So this is the co-op game. You fly around a lot, don't you? Let's have a little look at it. It's like an exploration game. Oh, it's free, is it? Oh, plan. This one says planned to be released on Steam. Shooters to VR. Okay. Fall Guys. Yeah, I haven't played that. Hello, Michaela. This looks interesting. Like you say, kind of meditative. Does it have any sort of combat or anything, or it's more of an open world exploration? It's on the phone and the Switch. Yeah, I just saw it listed for Android. How's the ear, Michaela? Is it getting better? What's your favourite shooter, Energy? Oh, they just steal stuff, do they? Interesting. Been looking at this one a little bit lately. Project Zomboid. Favorite shooter, Call of Duty World at War. Ah, interesting. Yeah, Skyrim. I just downloaded a mod pack for Skyrim today. A mod list. I tell you what, let's watch this together actually, because I was going to do a video on this before. I was going to do... let me just find it. I was going to do a reaction video to this earlier. Let me see if I can find it on here. Here we go. Let's watch this together because this is Skyrim. I just downloaded the mod list before, and I haven't seen. I know a lot about the mod list. I've been following the development of it for a long time, but I wanted to kind of watch this video and check it out. So it's called "What is Wildlander? An Introduction to Wildlander." So this is like a role.
You, a normal person living in the real world, are magically picked up and dropped into Skyrim. You find at your feet a weapon, maybe some armor, a potion, and a day's supply of food. That is how you start Wildlander. You don't have a clue how to use the weapon, wear the armor, cast a spell, or mix a potion. So how are you going to survive? In this video, I will be doing my best to guide you through the absolute basics of Wildlander, from your first day to your first kill. Welcome to the ultimate role-playing overhaul.
So there you go, role-playing overhaul. It's like you get dropped in, it's like a realistic sort of simulation of Skyrim. You have to eat,
Part
drink,
one.
there's
What is
cold. And...
Wildlander? The most important thing to understand is that the world of Wildlander is a deadly one. Unlike vanilla Skyrim, Wildlander does not revolve around the player. Anything can kill you, from the wolves to random bandits, even the environment, and it frequently will. Combat is lethal, as are your surroundings. You're just as likely to starve or freeze to death as you are to die from a sword through the gut. Preparation is key to survival, as is knowing your limits. If something looks like it might kill you, it probably will. Know what you're capable of and what you aren't. Running away might seem cowardly, but it is better to fight another day than to go down heroically. Wildlander is built around the Requiem role-playing overhaul, which makes drastic changes to almost every aspect of Skyrim. Very little remains untouched. The biggest differences to mention are the changes made to the skill trees and power scaling. Requiem does away with the boring perk sinks of vanilla Skyrim. Each perk has a genuine impact, resulting in an experience where your choices made during level up.
So you have to, you can't wear heavy armor without having a perk. You know, if you try to wear the armor, your stamina drains and you can't move. You can't wield certain weapons without having the right perk. You know, like you do no damage, your weapons break, and so it's supposed to be like a kind of simulation version of Skyrim, which is crazy. And they reckon the dragons are really tough, you know. So yeah, it looks pretty good. But it looks like the sort of game, the mod list you would want to play if you wanted to play it really slowly and in depth and kind of role play and immerse yourself in the world. So you were more looking for an experience as opposed to trying to just complete the game or play a cool game. You know, you wanted to have a kind of virtual experience.
Are much more valuable than before. Requiem also de-levels the world. This means encounter zones are consistent, from level 5 to level 50. The world is no longer catered to the whims of the player. Instead, you need to decide if an area is out of your league. If something kicks you in the teeth 20 times, you're probably not ready for it yet. That covers
it's got an alternate start mod in it, so you can pick your character's background, and then it spawns you in a random, maybe it's not random, I don't know if it's random, but depending on what character you choose, you spawn at a different setting in the world. You could be a bandit in a bandit camp or a vampire in a vampire lair or something like that.
Very basics, but you should understand before taking the plunge that
plus it's still in development.
Has been altered in a significant capacity by Wildlander.
I got no idea.
To the economy, to the quests.
I was looking at the wiki today, and it's really detailed. So it recommends that you kind of get a grip of the wiki beforehand, before jumping into it, just so you know what to expect. And this person here, Liam H Dev or Liam Dev, he's got quite a good series. He's actually got quite a few playlists too. It looks like a few playthroughs, but he's got these guides here: character creation, races, backgrounds, birth signs, and finishing touches. So you choose all of these as you create your character. Then it's got advanced mechanics, skills and progression, survival and exploration, economy and player homes, speechcraft and followers. So, you know, there's been quite a big overhaul to the system. So the systems, the mechanics. So I think you'd want to kind of get a grip of maybe watching a bit of content first to make sure you know like how to really soak up the game. By a vampire. I know there's a few. Did I do vampire? I think I went down the road of werewolf when I played it. Yeah, I think I got bit by a vampire and then cured it, and then went down the road of the companions. Is it they're called?
This results in a Skyrim experience unlike anything.
But there's some really, really, really cool vampire overhaul mods. And I think some of them have been incorporated into here a little bit, or they plan to incorporate them.
Part 2. Character creation. Now that you know what you're in for, let's get started with character creation. Wildlander, unlike vanilla Skyrim, doesn't begin with an overlong introduction scene, and instead hops straight into the customization menu. Character creation has a few steps to it before you're dropped into the world. First, you must pick your race. Requiem has made sweeping changes to all the races, and they are now much more unique than they were in the vanilla game. You can still play an Orc Mage or a Bosmer Barbarian if you choose to do so, but the differences are far more defined than they
So I
used to be.
remember reading earlier that spells cause sound when you cast them. So you can't be a mage and like a sneak mage or stealth mage because your spells cause sound when you cast them. Apparently you have to get deep into the illusion tree when it gives you the option to like switch off the sound or muffle the sound or something like that. So it's become way more like you have to choose which way you want to go and kind of specialize your character. You can't do everything, you know. Like there's no sneaking for warriors who wear heavy armor, and I think that's in vanilla anyway. Actually, I'm not sure if that's in vanilla, but it's just been kind of realized, the game.
Each race has unique abilities, powers, and traits, which all define their experience. They also start with race-specific health, magicka, stamina, and carry weight.
Well, this is all in the
table
wiki.
showcases
This
all their differences, which can
quite
also
deep.
be found in the description. Once your race is picked, you must choose a background. Backgrounds act like classes from the older Elder Scrolls game. You can either choose a pre-made background or create your own, selecting 6 skills to start with at a higher level. Alternatively, you could take a quiz, which will assign you a class based on your results, but I advise you use one of the first 2 methods. Backgrounds heavily impact your early game progression, as the skill bonuses you receive from them are vital to your survival. If you're unfamiliar with Requiem or Wildlander, I recommend picking one of the 3 basic classes, Warrior, Thief, or Mage. These are strong baseline starts, which you can use to learn the basics of the mod. I don't recommend using a hybrid class unless you are familiar with Requiem's mechanics. The final element of character creation is picking your standing stone. Unlike vanilla Skyrim, Wildlander lets you start with a standing stone off the bat, which can make the early game a lot easier if you know how to properly utilize their effects. Much like race, it is important to choose a standing stone which aligns with your build. Once again, if you're unfamiliar with Requiem systems, I suggest picking one of the 3 basic stones, Warrior, Thief, or Mage. Other stones
So it
are
looks
arguably
like-
more powerful than the Guardian stones.
It looks like it'd be a good idea to get a bit of a practice run in, you know, to kind of get used to the environment. I know, like, to start out with, because you're a normal person, I've watched a couple of playthroughs in the past, and you basically have to get a job. You have to get a job. You're like delivering packages for people and maybe going to pick up some herbs for the alchemist or whatever. You have to get a job in order to be able to earn money, because you can't even wield weapons. You have no skills. You can't fight. You have to train all of this stuff up, you know? So I've been waiting for, it's got to be like 3 years now. It used to be called Ultimate Skyrim, this mod list. And I discovered it, God, it's probably more than 3 years. It's probably more like 5 years ago. And I downloaded it. And as soon as I started learning about it, I was like, right, I'm going to play this one day. But I know I'm going to want to get so deeply immersed in it that I need to wait for the right time, you know? So I feel like I'm nearly there. I'm playing a bit of State of Decay 2 and Fallout 4 at the moment, but I want to get through these couple of sort of series that I've done that I'm in the middle of, and then want to get around to playing this mod list.
Provide a way to make learning the game's mechanics
There's
easier.
just so many good mod lists
Warrior
now.
increases your skills with weaponry, Thief adds to your stealth-related skills, and Mage grants extra magicka. Now, your character is complete. Whiterun, or at least the Whiterun area.
So you were choosing a
First is your
starting city.
Two
What does that say?
decisions to make.
Yeah.
The first is your starting location. I recommend beginning in Whiterun, or at least the Whiterun area, as it provides a fairly safe place for you to become familiar with the game's systems. The further you go out from the center of the map, the more dangerous the world becomes. The second decision is whether or not you want your character to be Dragonborn. Wildlander allows the player to play the game without being the prophesied hero of Skyrim, and instead just be a normal person.
So it's obviously got so much replayability. You could generate so many different kinds of characters,
Will be locked off.
go down
This is
so many
always
different
the most important
roads
decision,
and different
and no one
paths
can go
and
back
different
on.
quest
No
lines.
matter what, your choice here is permanent and not changeable. With everything done, you are now ready to enter the world. It is time to experience your first day in Wildlander.
I don't know if this mod list has it, but the original Ultimate Skyrim, which this evolved from, Oh yeah, so this is the
First
tips
thing
I've
you
been
should
looking
do-
for. It's like it's telling you what to do on your first day. So the original mod list, which was for what they call Old Rim, the original Skyrim, not Special Edition, it used to have a mod in it where it was one death. You know, it was like a permadeath mod list. So if you died, your character was gone. So you had to really get to grips with the world and make sure you would survive, and go really slow in all your encounters, because if you died, that was it. The character died, that's game over.
when you enter
But I don't know if this one has that
the
implemented.
world is open your inventory. Your background provides you with a modest set of gear which should accommodate you in the early game, and every character begins with 500 gold. Familiarize yourself with your equipment before you move on. Your next step should be to open the skill menu. Wildlander starts you off with 6 perks to allocate at level 1, and I recommend you put a perk in each of your background related skills.
Yeah.
Once this is done, you can get started acquiring some useful gear.
Yeah, so if you don't have that perk, see that one there? Like, he's got heavy armor on. Stamina drain from wearing heavy armor. So if he didn't pick that, just putting your heavy armor on, your stamina drops. And then if you hit 0, if your stamina goes all the way down, you can't move at all. You're frozen in place. So as you would think, like, if you want to wear heavy armor, you're going to need training to wear that, because it's going to burden you. It's going to wear you down. So, you know, you have these skills, perks related to what you want your character to be able to do.
Once this is done, you can get started acquiring some useful gear.
Looks quite interesting, doesn't it? Just to go in and
The first
experience
things
the
you should try to
world.
pick up are a backpack and a cloak.
Like exploration. It's one of my favourite things to do in Bethesda games, is just
The
explore the
backpack helps
world
alleviate that somewhat.
and kind of
Protection from the
roleplay.
cold is just as valuable as protection from your enemies.
Yeah,
so
it
a
looks
cloak
good.
is definitely a good investment. Basic camping equipment is useful but expensive. Hold off on acquiring.
Yes, there's
that for now.
camping and stuff too. You got to keep warm.
You should spend the rest
You
of your
freeze.
first day exploring your surroundings and
If you get
familiarizing
wet
yourself with
and
the
cold
materials.
outside, it can kill you.
F11 brings up a useful controller map.
You have to have a
Design made
good
for USB
gear
boards.
to keep you warm and
First,
keep you
consider your
dry
life
from the
and
rain.
environment.
And
Cost of living has been raised dramatically in Wildlander, and expenses are frequent. You need a place to sleep, food to satiate your hunger, and a smith to repair your equipment. Spend some time hunting, collecting wood, and doing odd jobs for cash. You can also use this time to practice your skills. Wildlander has a number of options for a non-combat player progression. No longer are you forced to fight to the death for every little bit of experience. You can study books, train at practice dummies, and perform research to increase your initially meager skills.
yeah, so it's like,
Once you finish,
it's almost like what you would imagine doing in an MMO, you know?
Part 4. Adventuring 101. A good place to source jobs from in
Here you
every
go.
city is the Missives board. Not only does it provide
This is where you
easy
get your
access to
jobs
raiding
from.
quests for a few septims, but it can also lead you to some combat encounters. Be careful with what jobs you take, as they aren't level locked and won't scale to you. Early on, try to stick to animals and bandits until you're comfortable with your character. If you want to tackle something above your pay grade, consider hiring a mercenary. They're significantly changed from vanilla and now require daily payment instead of a one-time fee, but they still provide decent defense from your usual fodder enemies. Combat is significantly overhauled in Wildlander. In this world, everybody and everything hits harder. You, the wildlife, and NPCs. You will die faster and kill faster. A sneaky ambush may allow you to easily take out someone unaware of your presence, but at the same time, there's less room for
Oh yeah,
mistakes.
look down here too.
One wrong move and
You have
you'll hit the ground
stamina.
before you can draw your you'll die
Stamina
faster
drain
and kill
on your
faster.
bow
A
draw.
sneaky ambush
Can't see
may
that,
allow
hold
you
on.
to
Let me get rid of this red
Combat
bar.
is significantly overhauled in
Look at the
Wildlander.
bottom of the screen when he draws the
Everybody
bow.
and everything hits harder. You, the wildlife, and NPCs.
You have
Die
stamina
faster
drain.
and kill faster.
And it
Sneaky
comes back up
ambush may allow you
really
to
slowly.
easily take out someone unaware of your presence, but at the same time,
Look how
there's less
slowly
room
that's
for
coming back up.
mistakes. One wrong move and you'll hit the ground before you can draw
So
your
you got,
weapon.
oh yeah, all your
Planning
swings and your
tactics.
holding your
Never
shield up
underestimate
drains your
the power of
stamina.
scouting an area
I guess
first.
maybe later on you can get perks
Stamina
that negate that,
management is key to
or
survival.
counter it a little
For
bit.
melee characters in particular,
But
low
it just,
stamina is a death
it
penalty.
feels way more
Not only do far
tactical.
more actions drain stamina than the vanilla game,
Yeah, he's
but
talking
now it
about.
carries much more weight in combat. Attacking, blocking, jumping, and even just walking drains your stamina constantly.
Yeah, look,
Low
stamina's
means
just
you block
dropping.
less damage, run slower, and can't hit as hard. keeping on top of your stamina will be an important
You
skill to
almost
learn.
have to stop and catch your breath in the middle of combat, which sounds crazy.
Wildlander also alters the health economy. Your HP no longer passively regenerates. You won't heal your wounds by sleeping it off. You need to make an investment of resources in order to restore your
No
health.
passive HP regen.
And restoration and alchemy
Yeah.
provide easy sources of health regeneration, but non-magical players are going to have more trouble. Healing poultices are the most available to all characters and provide slow regeneration over a
So
long
down
period of
here,
time.
down here, oh, you actually can't see that. Here, let me get rid of the camera. Oops. You'll see it down here in a second. Yeah, down here at the bottom right, when he gets in combat here. What did I see? Oh, I've gone past it. Yeah. Yeah, down here. So you've got constant buffs on your character. A lot of these you get from eating food. So your health won't regen by itself, but if you take a potion or food, it'll slowly tick up. So your food, your stamina will regen faster. Say if you've had a stew to eat, and it might last 2 hours, that stew, as it would do, and so that helps you regain your stamina quicker. And then there's similar things for health, and I guess defense and all sorts of other stuff too. So it just feels like it's become way more tactical. Yeah, we've got to get into it.
The ground before you can draw your weapon. You need planning and tactics. Never underestimate the power of scouting an area first. Stamina management is key to survival. For melee characters in particular, low stamina is a death penalty. Not only do far more actions drain stamina than the vanilla game, but now it carries much more weight in combat. Attacking, blocking, jumping, and even just walking less damage.
Sounds good,
once
right?
love is made to stamina.
Sounds hardcore though.
Wildlander your wounds by sleeping it off. You need to make an investment of resources in order to restore your health. Taking perks in restoration and alchemy can provide easy sources of health regeneration, but non-magical players are going to have more trouble. Healing poultices are the most available to all characters and provide slow regeneration over a long period of time. What next? Well, that's up to you. Go out and explore. Get a job, catch some fish, kill some bandits. Wildlander provides many avenues of progression for you to truly live in Skyrim. Good luck, and have fun.
Looks good, right? So yeah, that's Wildlander. Mod list. This is one I've been checking out as well lately. I've played it once before, but it's been updated a lot since I watched it last. Project Zomboid. Don't know if you've heard of that.
Players right now as I make the script, replayability beyond practically any other game I've played in recent memory, and a steep but manageable learning curve that keeps me interested in the game every single session.
Shredder, hey, how's it going?
Get it? No brains. Project Zomboid.
I haven't played it for a long time.
Genius, and with a games industry that falls short lately in a lot of predictable ways, Project Zomboid effortlessly stands out from the crowd. Let's dive in. First things first, the game just starts off strong.
This is a hyper-realistic simulator of zombie apocalypse. I've watched a lot of it, but I've never played it properly. I think I played it once just to get a feel for it, and I realized I need to really immerse myself in it, you know, because it's very deep
secondary alternative, attempting to
and very tough.
The player base even before some of those problems that they might encounter become visible in the first place.
Because it's a permadeath game, you get one life.
And the game only gets better from there. The next major thing to be clear about is that mod support is not just a basic function.
Although, actually, the way it works, I think, is so you get a character, you bring them into the world, you level up their skills, you train them up. If that character dies, you can start again in the same world with a new character who doesn't have the same skills, but all of the work that you've done and the resources that you've gathered, say you've been out and you've, looted the map and stored all your resources in a house, all of that stuff will still be there, and all of the work you've still done, and the houses will still be looted. So it's the same world, but you can have a different character in that world, which I think is brilliant. I really love that idea.
It's very smooth.
I wish more games did that. And I wish there was like a mod for Fallout 4 or for Skyrim that did the same thing. I think there is for Skyrim,
Quite
actually.
literally, anyone can do it, even me, with ease. And that's not always the case for all games, which is yet another way that this title stands out from the crowd from the very first moment that you log in. Like I said, starting off strong in the player support and community categories without any question, because there are a lot of talented modders working on this game, clearly.
Getting your clothes wet and put them in the dryer. I didn't know you could dry your clothes.
Default game itself. Project Zomboid
I know your
is a
clothes get
survival
dirty.
RPG, go figure, based on the title, and it's the best one I've ever played. Why? Because the game isn't about you or your character, it's about the world. You will die in this game. You will lose your progress, sort of. Every time you start out, you get placed in a random safe house. No zombies in that particular house. Some basic provisions, water and power for a limited number of days before they shut off for good.
That's right. So the world has water and power for a while, and then it shuts off. So the whole world loses power. So you need to be prepared for that. And like, I guess there's seasons. Actually, I don't know if there are seasons. Like, are you preparing for winter, maybe? Or is it just the power?
Survive. Built on realism, the game is one of the most intuitive digital creations I have ever spent time in.
There are seasons, right?
About individual mechanics or not, or a descriptive segment about how the systems all work, because that might honestly destroy some of the enjoyment that individual future players get. So I'll do it like this. My first character died immediately. I made no progress.
That's what happened to me.
Had no impact on the world around me, but every time I dropped into the game subsequently after that, I learned some sort of critical lesson. On my first run, I learned that I always need to crouch and stay hidden. Attracting a large group of zombies by running through the street like I did can easily kill you. And once I panicked and ran, they just kept appearing from everywhere. It didn't help I was actually on the hardest difficulty on the hardest map, but I realized that later when I kept experimenting. My second character, well, I let that one die on purpose because I didn't realize that I need to cover my safe house windows. While sleeping, a zombie saw me, I guess, and, well, that was a bad run, but it taught me the value of battening down, boarding up, and covering the windows with sheets.
Yeah.
I can't stress this enough.
You can cover windows and board up windows and
on the entire market, and the
board
action
up
pattern I go
doors,
through
I
with
think.
every new character intuitively just makes sense. Over the course of my next few runs, I learned.
And there's so much stuff to
Eat fresh
find,
produce first. Don't carry
and all of it
weight
has a
so you don't
use.
actually hurt yourself and your character. And eventually read the books and watch TV because at the start you
Food
simply don't have the
mechanics,
necessary skills to
spoilage.
survive, and you have to supplement your knowledge. Every time I loaded in, I would die. Sometimes in a few days, sometimes in a few weeks, but I would carry forward new tactics and bits of knowledge that equipped me better to survive the next time. Eventually, painfully, I might add, I understood enough to really dig in and actually survive. A few days or weeks became long enough that the power and water would shut off pretty much every single time. A process that seems to happen at random somewhere in the first month or so of game time, in-game time. And that's when I had to start really learning. In a sense, all those failed runs had been preparing me for what seemed like the next major milestone. I had been playing the tutorial, if you will, living off borrowed time.
Right, so there's different settings in the game. Whether you start out at the beginning of the apocalypse, partway through. I don't know if it's a setting in the game or if there's a mod as well that's called 10 years later, which is after everything's collapsed. It's 10 years past, so there's hardly any loot around. You can choose, I think you can choose the level of zombies in the world too. It's in the settings too, is it? Yeah, so, and there's a ton of mods. There's an absolute load of mods for the game. So it looks great. It's another one. It's on my pause list because I get these games and I just know when I want to play it, I don't want to have anything else going on. I don't want to be halfway through another game. Or, you know, I want to fully immerse myself in the world and really get to grips with it. Because I'm going to want to play it for ages. So it's on the pause list. Along with about 50 other games.
A work of genius. The next thing that hit me was when I knew I absolutely had to make a video. See, you aren't the main character here. The world is. That might sound stupid, but let me explain.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, can't you select whether the zombies run as well? There's running zombies, isn't there? Isn't it? Fast zombies or something like that? I've seen footage of somebody playing with only fast zombies, sprinters. Mental.
Bring food and weapons. It wasn't anything
yeah, he didn't last long. The video I watched, he didn't last long.
To carry them and canned food right off the bat.
But your character gets anxiety, they need to take antidepressants. They have to, like, you know, if they're getting bored, you need to, like, entertain them with magazines and Yeah,
encounter
impossible
or
to
any
fight more than
zombie
2 at a
can be bad.
time.
You never get so strong that the game becomes trivial. It just, well, at least I haven't yet. Maybe some people do eventually. It just doesn't seem to happen though, because at any moment, even while equipped with vicious weaponry and solid armor, at any moment,
And you wait and
hit
see
with
on here. Like, if you haven't seen much of this game before,
Anyway,
hopefully he shows us a clip of like how many zombies you can get.
I'm not gonna lie, but something told me to try just one more run. That little voice in the back of my head. So I did it.
Because you see people literally surrounded by
I had spawned
2,000 zombies
with, go figure, because it was actually
on the
close by
street.
to where I spawned the run before, if you can believe that. And this was the aha moment for me, like it really was, because when I went back over to where I thought my things had been, I was thinking it's all so familiar. I mean, is this the same place? It was a good house. Maybe the loot wasn't randomized. Maybe I could get all the stuff again. I don't know. There was a lot going through my mind at that point in time. I was frustrated with having died before. When I got there, everything I had done, the alterations I had made, the progress I had achieved, even my own character with all the gear he was carrying was still there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This was when
I didn't know that the character that you lose, I didn't know they turned into a zombie and they stay in the world.
Knew the game was for me.
Isn't that cool?
The vessel I spawned in with, the fragile thing,
It's also multiplayer, so you can play with friends. It's also multiplayer.
The real game was the persistent world, and my ability to shape it over time was the key. That's when I kicked it into overdrive. I learned that I could use a pen and mark the map. I started putting down critical locations, safe houses, libraries, etc.
Cool, right?
Finding the actual books I needed to accomplish goals and get skill multipliers for progression. I got a car working, which was incredibly satisfying the first time. Actually, the first time it was luck, but from there...
There's base building and stuff too. I've never seen too much of the base building because I've never seen anybody really spend enough time. Like, I think it's really tough. It takes you a long time to get all of the gear for it. But you can build up walls and other things, gardens and stuff like that. Like he says, generators, there's power, there's lights, and you can build stairs and ramps and platforms and all sorts. You can disassemble furniture, build furniture. Oh, they're introducing like farming animals, are they? That is cool. It's been out for a while and the game's still getting updated.
Until I realized it, and it was like, whoa, of course. I had to understand water purification as well, logically.
There you go.
The impact of using firearms, since they attracted a massive...
Right, there's guns as well, but it's almost recommended that you don't use them.
Satisfying as the other ones. Another moment that stands out a lot was when I first figured out how to craft spears, and then use them at the proper distance to just...
Ooh, NPCs, that's cool. Like bandits or maybe other like communities is there and stuff like that. Fuck, that'll be good. That'll be really good.
The satisfaction available in this game is practically unrivaled.
Especially multiplayer as well.
Mastered the fucking character builder. See, Project Zomboid layers in professions better than any other survival game I've played. Want to be an electrician? Yeah, good call, because you have actual knowledge that helps in unexpected ways. You can be a burglar.
Yeah, you see how he's like, as well, you just see it a little bit there. When he spins around, look at the lighting change. Well, actually, a little bit further back.
And I still hadn't even Project Zomboid.
See the lighting change as he turns around. So you can only see what's in front of you. Yeah, I know RimWorld, yeah. That's another one I've watched a lot of but haven't played. So you can't see if there's zombies behind you. You don't see them unless you look. You turn around to look. So you can only see what your character can see, which is crazy. Yeah, so RimWorld's good, isn't it? RimWorld's cool. I like to watch RimWorld. I've never played it though. That has a lot of mods too, doesn't it? I love modding, by the way. I can make basic mods, but I love modding games. I've spent hours modding Fallout 4 and Skyrim, but more Fallout 4. But yeah, I really like games that you can mod, because it changes things up. You can change things up so drastically.
Very satisfying, and it gets even better when you start to develop a proper mindset of sorts. Every few seconds, you'll like spin around rapidly and check behind you. Why?
Ah, I see. Yeah, well, it won't be long. Even if there aren't already mods that do it, it won't be long before people take the whatever the code is that creates the NPCs, and it'll turn them into bandits for sure. The modders will do it. Modders make games these days, as far as I'm concerned. A game like Fallout 4, probably even Fallout New Vegas to a degree, and probably even Skyrim, if those games weren't moddable, they would have been massive for a while, and then they would have just died off. But the fact that they're moddable and so adaptable, I really think though that's what's kept those games alive for so long. Like, okay, they're really great base games, but they stand out compared to everything else, you know? The world is amazing. Okay, you give that to Bethesda, but the modders have kept it alive for so long, adding in new content, even entire DLC-sized content. Yeah, Project Zomboid is similar. And again, these are really great games, but I really think they wouldn't be anywhere near as popular today if modding wasn't a thing, because modding tends to keep the game alive in the public eye, because there's always new stuff coming out, so people want to keep playing it. I often wonder why, you know, if a developer really wants their game to do well, it's pretty clear that you just open it up to modders, let the modders take over, and you know, they do wonders with your game and keep it alive for a lot longer. I wonder why more developers don't do it. I think we're headed to a place where basically every game becomes moddable, and you know, games are kind of designed by the players eventually. Like a developer might generate a platform, like a base game, which is just built to be modded on top of, and then players can adapt it and change it and choose to make the game they want. I really think that's where we're going with gaming and the development of AI. I think gaming's going to become ultra adaptable to what you want it to be on a very personalized level. That's where I think we're headed with gaming. I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night. Kind of cool, right? Diablo 4, that's another one I've been keeping an eye on. Kingdom Come Deliverance. Now that is a game. Yeah, well, did you see the demo? The Nvidia demo? The Nvidia AI demo? Did you see that? What are we looking at here? I'm going to change the camera. This one. Okay, here we go. Did you see the Nvidia AI demo? It was released like maybe 3 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago or something. This guy. This is crazy. Like, I know you've seen it. You say you've seen it. So the person who's playing the game is talking. Probably got a headset on or whatever, you know? And he's talking to this character. And the character is talking back to him with relevant information to what he's asking. Is mental. Just this as a concept, and considering that this is the beginning. You and I know ChatGPT, it's revolutionary. It's only just come out. We're just getting started. We are just getting started with this technology. So where this is going, honestly, I don't think we can even really fathom it yet. It's what do you call it? Just emerged from the womb, you know.
We are thrilled to showcase an immersive and dynamic interaction using the latest RTX rendering and audio to fit and meta-human.
Here. Meta-human.
Hey Jen, how are you?
Unfortunately, not so good.
How come?
So that's his real voice, right? the person who's playing the game, you know,
Hey,
this
Jen. How
Kai,
are you?
that's his real voice.
Unfortunately, not so good.
And that's your AI.
I am worried about the crime around here.
Yeah,
gotten
it's
bad
it's
lately.
a strange time,
My ramen
Shredder.
shop got caught in the crossfire.
It's a strange time for all of this going on,
If
you know,
wanna
like
do something about this. I have heard rumors that the
I was
powerful
talking about
crypto
this in
Truman
I think I
IoT
talked about this in one of the streams the other week on here about how we will deceive ourselves with this technology, because you and I already know how many people have lost years and years of their life to games like WoW, World of Warcraft, and other similar kind of ultra consuming game worlds and environments. Imagine what it'll be when it's this hyper realistic and tailored to each person's emotion, and how easily human beings mislead themselves. Like, I was watching a documentary the other week on the current state of robotics and AI, and the documentary is probably about 6 months old. Maybe not. Maybe it's like 3 months old or something. It was released quite recently, and there's an element in it where men over in Japan marrying robots. They're falling in love with them, and they're giving up on regular human relationships because the robot's better for them. And this isn't even really talking about the integration of technology into the human system. Like we've got Elon Musk with his Neuralink going into human trials next year, approved for human trials for 2024. So what we're looking at now is it's the origin point of some very, very strange and interesting developments in the world of technology. And yeah, like I say, we are just at the, how like you have fireworks where you walk up and you like light the fuse. The fuse is just being lit. The thing's not even shot off into the sky yet. We've just lit the fuse and we're all standing back going, "Ooh, what's this gonna be like?" And the fuse is like the fire is moving towards the rocket and then it shoots up. Yeah. We're just starting. We have no idea what this is going to do, and it's going to be so dramatic and such a powerful impact. I can already foresee great, incredible things and also very great, devastating things,
is causing all sorts of chaos in the city.
Just because that's what we always do, right?
I'll talk to him. Where can I find him?
I have heard he hangs out in the
There's no
underground fighting
technology
clubs
that
on
we've
the city's
invented
east
yet
side.
that hasn't gone both
Try
ways
there.
at the same time.
Okay, I'll go.
Stuff that's been created for great wonder and incredible, very, very brilliant uses for our progress, if you want to call it that. Our ability to generate better lives for ourselves. But at the same time, it's used for devastation and control and manipulation and, well, horrible things, right? And yeah, we're just getting started. Wait till we've got AI systems building our computers, which we kind of already have, but in a very limited capacity. So yeah, it's crazy times. Crazy, crazy times, really. Hey, what do you think of this picture? Speaking of AI, I made that with an AI program. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, the things you can do now. Midjourney, that's right. One of the newer models of it. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Like a cyberpunk. I made this for an episode I did on Cyberpunk 2077, the game modded. That's another game you can mod. Scary good, isn't it? Yeah, it's real cool. A lot of fun to play around with too. Yeah, it's mad, guys. It's crazy times, real cool times. But what one of the biggest questions I have is, how do our leaders, our so-called leaders, how do they use this AI? You know, that's the question. And will they be able to use it? Will they be able to use it, or will it outrank them? Will it outreach them? Will it outstretch them? As in, sometimes you try to control this stuff, but it grows beyond your control, you know? Will it do whatever they want it to do? So the leaders will AI do what our leaders, our so-called leaders, which is our government, right? Will the AI do what the government wants it to do? And what does the government want it to do? How will these systems be implemented upon us, the general population? Yeah, there's all sorts going on. Like, there's massive, you could say, lots of little fireworks being lit all over the place in society at the moment, in so many different ways, related to technology, related to spirituality, related to medical things. I don't know what's the regulation on Twitch when you're talking about pandemics and stuff like that. Various levels of corruption in the government, Hollywood, you know, like all sorts of shit going down. And revelations in religions too, revivals of religions and stuff like that. So it's like there's lots of really interesting fireworks being lit around the world at the moment, and nobody really knows which way it's going to go, but it's absolutely fascinating to watch it unfold, to try to find our way through it all, right? We're a crazy species, that's for sure, and we're very, very interesting to watch. We're so different, so dynamic, and so many things. We are so many things all at once. And to watch us do it, to watch us go through that. Don't forget about aliens and ETs and disclosure from the government. I mean, UFO disclosure being sought and potentially released. Like, there's a lot going down. So yeah, it's really, really fascinating times. I think we're on the cusp. We're at the cusp in so many areas that for so long have gone overlooked by the majority of the population, that for very soon will not be overlooked for much longer. Yeah. You know what, right? I won't go too much into this because I can't confirm it, but I heard some very, very interesting testimony the other day. I was doing some rabbit hole wandering around on the internet, as we all do. And I was listening to a testimony of a woman who claims to have history with a connection to special access programs. And, you know, there's reports, and this is why I won't go too much into it, because I'm just repeating what I've heard here, and you never know, do you? You never know when it comes to these types of things, because it's all second-hand or third-hand or fourth-hand information. I've had my own experiences, and they're different, but this particular report is one of the coolest I've ever heard. And in this report, I think it was a woman, she's talking about how these documents have been released within disclosure about dating back to, I think it was the 1960s. This was quite soon after Roswell, which I think took place in the late 40s or the 50s. That quite soon after that, we had made contact with advanced civilizations, and these advanced civilizations were talking to the the leaders of our black ops government programs that are designed to deal with things that the general population aren't really ready to, or that they just don't want the general population knowing about because they're also uncertain about it, and that various arrangements were made between between our species and advanced civilizations about sharing knowledge and sharing the knowledge of technology and trade arrangements and trade agreements, and how these advanced civilizations came to the arrangement with our leaders at the time that there has been a long-term plan in place to somehow figure out how to awaken and introduce the general population of the human species. I know this sounds pretty out there, but it's very interesting. This was her report, that there's been arrangements made that these ETs have agreed to take a step back, and our leaders promised to introduce us as the general population to these technologies and to these reality of these civilizations, and so that the ETs wouldn't interfere with that process. They reckon that our leaders said they would establish a way of slowly introducing them to us and getting us on board, because it's going to be so dramatically disruptive to our way of life. Like basically every religion on the planet is practically done for, along with most of the beliefs and the cultures that come from that global, how the global economy will operate within the reality of an interstellar community. I mean, it's just drastically disruptive. Anyway, that apparently our leaders didn't uphold their end of the bargain, and so now the ETs are back. They've come back because they made this arrangement 40, 50, 60 years ago, whatever it is now, 50 or 60 years ago, and our leaders promised that they would share the technology with the people, but they haven't. And actually what they've done is they've used the technology and turned it to war. And so the report is that's why right now there is a massive resurgence of ET activity around the planet, and because they're not happy, and they want to know what the hell's going on, and why haven't we been told? Why hasn't this technology been shared? Why are we still poisoning the planet? Why are we still killing each other? It's not necessary anymore. We should have evolved past this point by now. And anyway, yeah, just one of the more interesting reports that I've heard recently on the whole current UAP development. Apparently we've got 2 years to get our shit together. 2.5 years to get our shit together. By 2026, there's some stuff that's in the works. Yeah, I have Shredder. Isn't it interesting stuff? And this is what I mean by just pure fascination with what's going on at the moment on the planet. Obviously, it's not super relevant to... I mean, it kind of is relevant to spirituality and inner peace. The thing is, with the ego grasps a hold of a lot of this very primitive form of consciousness on this planet, and it uses that to keep itself limited. So as that dissolves for more and more of us, our consciousness becomes cosmic. We suddenly realize we are not actually individuals. We are connected to all of life, and obviously all of life extends off this planet and throughout time and space. And so as we become enlightened, we awaken to our connection to the rest of life, and we see that, oh, it's not just about me. I'm actually everywhere, connected to everything, and that life is everywhere. And so, on a collective level as a planet, our intelligence makes contact next door with other civilizations. So it is connected. But it's not something to get too worked up about, you know? Very much could be. But when we talk about interdimensional and extraterrestrial consciousness, we are referring to advanced consciousness. Consciousness that is highly evolved. And so if you and I evolve our consciousness so that it is more highly evolved, we are connecting with that form of intelligence. So whatever consciousness governs ET civilizations and interdimensional civilizations, we take ourselves to the same level, which means we make contact. So it's one and the same thing. But that form of consciousness can't be controlled, in the sense you become a completely independent agent, self-governed, self-regulated, self-authority. You make up your own mind. Because your consciousness is so highly evolved, nothing else will stand over you. You're given the right to govern yourself. You're not a child anymore. You don't need to be watched over. You don't need to be told what to do. You earn the right to govern yourself because you have an advanced form of consciousness. So you're not gonna hurt anyone. You're not gonna attack anyone. You're not an ego anymore. You've evolved past that. And so you exist in harmony with the people around you. So you don't need to be governed. You don't need to be watched. You don't need to be manipulated. You don't need to be controlled because you're not a child anymore from the spiritual point of view. And so obviously the powers that be that run the show down here, that think they run the show, that control the general population and the direction that the system goes, it's not really within their let's say their best interest to have people waking up to this kind of reality. So, you know, there is an enemy, there's opposition to the objective of waking people up, which is where the questions arise. Which way is it going to go? If there is enough of a push for fear and mass control and anxiety and hatred and war, then the ego wins and we don't wake up again. We self-destruct. But if enough of us wake up, stop fighting, we let go of our egoic level of consciousness and we awaken, then yeah, we evolve and we get to play with our neighbours. We become cosmic, which is what happens to advanced civilizations, because advanced civilizations develop the technology to travel through space and time. And so when you do that, you get to meet your neighbours, all of the other civilizations that have done it before you. But if you don't, if you can't let go of your ego, well, you get quarantined. You get kept in a room, basically, because you're too insane. Here's the thing, right? I tried to go into this, believe it or not, in one of the earlier streams, and this is really cool, by the way, what we're about to talk about. It's really cool. I tried to go into it, and the stream started freaking out. The signal kind of decapitated itself, so see how we go this time. If you have an advanced society of human beings, an enlightened community, right? I've been in places like this. These are places where human beings dedicate their life to awakening, to cultivating enlightenment, which means, so the essence of this, to explain it very simply, is I want to know what is the deepest and most advanced form of human consciousness that I can cultivate. To transcend suffering, to transcend fear, transcend misery, transcend illusion. I want to find the truth of what consciousness is in my own heart. I want to look into that, right? So in these communities, various people live with that in mind. They go into their own heart of cultivation. They spend years and years and years looking into the nature of their own consciousness, and they always, every single one of them, evolves towards peace and love and harmony and serenity. No more war, less ego. Don't get me wrong, there are various levels where the ego, they're still struggling with the ego for a very long time, but eventually you're always evolving beyond it. Anyway, here's what happens, right? Here's what happens, and this is the key. In these communities, you have people who've been living there for various lengths. Some have been living there for 40 or 50 years. These are monks we're talking about, mystics and monks. And then all the way down to, you've got new people showing up who are coming to help out and support, and they're trying to learn about these lifestyles and these practices because they're interested in learning the same. So you've got people who've been there for a week with very little experience and insight into what the ego is. And then at the other end of the scale, you've got people who've been there for 40 or 50 years who are basically living in enlightened states all day long. And they are full of compassion and kindness, right? Now, here's what happens, yeah? This is the key. This is the key to understanding our position as human beings at the moment on this planet. In these communities, you have a very high level of consciousness functioning as human beings in these micro communities. There's maybe 20 or 30 people living at these properties from various levels. The really, really advanced monks and the advanced minds, the highest minds in these groups who've been cultivating for the longest time, who've cultivated the strongest power, they are aware that those who come through in the earlier stages, who are still beginning to find their way, those younger guys, the little ones, as opposed to the big ones, the little ones are still consumed by a lot of ego. And so they don't get given a lot of responsibility when it comes to teaching, and because their minds are very unstable, because they're still consumed by a lot of egoic behavior and a lot of egoic thinking, a lot of self-centeredness, a lot of conflict arises for those little ones, the young ones that are still quite new. They tend to argue a fair bit, and because they're still working shit out, you know. We've all got shit we got to process, and sometimes we get on each other's nerves. And anyway, so they know that these advanced beings tend to have to kind of isolate themselves. If these young ones are allowed to become too dominant and to have too much responsibility, they will overwhelm the serenity and the peace and the tranquility, because the ego is infectious. It's aggressive. It's got all sorts of traumas and all sorts of wrong perceptions, and it's more chaotic. So the advanced beings in these communities, the more evolved ones, they isolate themselves from the lesser evolved people. And they have to kind of keep a gap between them, because they know if they get too close, this insane ego, which still doesn't know what it is, it still doesn't know the truth, these people, they still haven't gone very deep into the truth of what their consciousness is. They're still learning. And so they have to create a gap. They operate on different levels of consciousness, and this lower one cannot reach the higher level of consciousness, but the higher one can reach the lower level of consciousness. But it's crazy down there because it's consumed by ego and wrong perceptions. Now anyway, here's what I'm getting at. If there are, let's just say if there are advanced civilizations, ETs, extraterrestrials, of course they know that we are insane, that our species is self-destructive, murderous, full of fear, full of terror, full of anxiety. We kill ourselves, we eat ourselves. I'm not even going to go into what we do to kids and what we do to, just what we do to ourselves, right? From the point of view of an advanced civilization, we are fucking insane, and we are as insane as it gets. Do you really? Well, I don't even need to say that. It's a fact. You're not getting invited to the party because you're absolutely insane. Nobody wants an insane, murderous entity at the party. That's hard to grasp for a lot of people. And so, of course, we're in quarantine. We don't really get interacted with, we get left alone, we get left in isolation because we're insane. Our species is insane from the point of view of advanced civilizations. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but people wonder why it's hard to go beyond the current restriction of how the consciousness tends to operate at the moment on this planet, how to transcend that, and why you feel so alone in doing that, because it's very hard to step out of that level of egoic consciousness, which is self-destructive and insane. Anyway, that's where we're at. That's what we're dealing with. So if we evolve, we make contact with a more advanced and more evolved form of our own consciousness, which obviously, if there are advanced civilizations out there, very clearly they're operating in a more evolved state of mind. So it explains a lot about why we think we're so alone when we're not. Right, after that tangent, which went on for quite a while, didn't it? I can't even remember how we got onto that. I am going to go, and if there's anybody still watching, I suppose I will see you next time round. So thanks for hanging out, guys. Everybody's gone real quiet. See you in the next one.